things first. Open it up, remove all the screws. There's this little piece inside which is wrapped around the floppy ribbon cable, so you have to be quite careful removing that. It seems quite delicate. When I opened this computer, it was absolutely covered in dust, as we'll see. Quite different from a Spectrum or some of the other computers that I'm used to working with. There's so many cables and wires actually attached to the motherboard. They can be quite delicate, so it's important to remove those very, very carefully. But they are socketed. There's a little tab on the socket, so I'm using a small flat-headed screwdriver to free the cable. And this is the wiring for the volume and the power button. And there's also another connector for the power light, which is on the top of the case. So remove those. Now I can remove the top section. This is the wiring loom. I have fitted an internal Gotek, that needs disconnecting as well. And now the board is free. And there we go. So there's a few cables and wires that can't be removed, particularly for the floppy disk. Now, I did say the case was dusty. The board is dusty, but now's an opportunity to do a little bit of cleaning. There's quite a lot of cleaning to be done. Hello world. So just with a damp cloth, clean the bottom of the case, remove about 30 years of dust. And this is the chip that I'm going to remove. That's the ROM chip. But before we do that, I noticed there was what looks like coffee that's been spilt on this area. So I'm going to clean that with cotton bud and some alcohol. And you can see that's absolutely filthy. And there's another area here that looks like it's coffee again. I recently refurbished the keyboard and there was signs of coffee spilt there as well, so I think that's gone all the way through to the board. But luckily the board's still working fine, so I've just cleaned that up. And now the real work begins, the desoldering of the chip. So I'm just putting a little bit of extra solder on here just to help. Got a solder sucker which I bought online for about £2. That's worked quite well. And I start removing the solder very carefully. It's important not to damage the tracks that can be quite delicate. So it's always quite a high stress operation for me. My time, and actually the chip, once I desoldered it, just popped out really easily. So here we're just checking the holes to make sure that they're clear and clean. I'm using an old toothbrush and some more alcohol and a cotton bud to remove any bits of solder, basically, to make sure that there's nothing that's going to create a connection that we don't want. And I put the socket in place, and that went in very easily. And now it's time to solder the socket in place. And then again, once I've done this, it's just a case of looking very carefully with a magnifying glass to make sure there's no solder splashes. Again, more cleaning, and to make sure all the joints are good. And then it's just a case of putting the new ROM chip into the socket and connecting all the wires back together. Screwing the board back down.